This final episode of Superman and Lois has presented viewers with a final glimpse of the legendary DC program and all of the cherished characters that have appeared on it. It has also culminated in an emotional send-off for the show's two title characters. At the conclusion of the 9th episode of the 4th season of Superman and Lois, the tale reached a pivotal and dramatic juncture, with Superman engaged in a conflict with Doomsday in which it appeared absolutely impossible for him to emerge victorious. This disagreement and Clark's heated rivalry with Lex Luthor are both resolved in episode 10, which then moves on to wrapping up all of the other loose ends that have been left over from the previous episodes of the series. Considering that the first episode of the live-action Superman show was released in February of 2021, the journey to the show's last episode, which is more than 3 years later, has been a relatively long one. The conclusion, on the other hand, demonstrates that this time has been well spent, since practically all of the tales and connections that have been built up over the course of the multiple seasons and years come into play in significant ways in the final chapter. All things considered, the 4th season of Superman and Lois brings the show to a close by delivering a final farewell that is both emotionally charged and profound to its protagonists and all that defines them in its conclusion. Since Superman was slain by Doomsday in their first fight at the beginning of Season 4, it is only natural that the conclusion of the show begins with a significant emphasis on the second round of the fight between Clark and Doomsday. This is because the 9th episode of the 4th season of Superman and Lois concludes with Clark having a rematch with Doomsday. In a fortunate turn of events, Clark is able to learn from his prior errors after receiving some prodding from Lois. He then instructs Jordan and Jonathan to fly Doomsday directly into Steel's hammer, which enables Superman to ascend to the sun. In space, however, there is another twist, as Doomsday appears to regain some level of his consciousness and memories as Bizarro, and recalling his own memories as the Bizarro world, Superman sacrifices himself in order to put an end to things and to seemingly save Superman, who likely otherwise would have had to potentially sacrifice his own life to finally stop Doomsday. This is a proper send-off for the character, and it is a rather emotional one at that, given that in earlier sections of the plot, Bizarro was both Superman's ally and his opponent. In the aftermath of Doomsday's defeat, Luthor, who is still resolute in his pursuit of bringing both Clark and Lois to their knees, becomes the focal point of attention. Lex utilizes the updated steel suit to take on Superman, and he even gets to employ the kryptonite screws that Milton developed, which lodge themselves into Clark's body in a terrible manner. However, Superman is able to smash a kryptonite screw with his bare hands, and then he takes the fight all the way to Lex, and uses all of his energy reserve to eventually defeat him. This is all because he is driven by the urge to put an end to everything once and for all. After Lex is taken into custody, Clark and Lois later find out that his appeal has been rejected, which means that he will be sentenced to life in Stryker prison. Lex is placed in a standard cell, which is revealed to be because Bruno Mannheim is there, and he is dedicated to ensuring that Luthor does not enjoy a nice prison term. This is a significant change from the lavish life that he had previously led in the prison after breaking it on his whim. In point of fact, Mannheim makes reference to Lex's insistence on having someone else serve as his human chair during the time that he was there, threatening to have Luthor serve in that capacity instead. 2 time-skipping episodes are included in the conclusion of Superman and Lois. The first time-skipping episode is a year long, while the second time-skipping episode is more gradual, moving along from this point to 32 years after the events of Season 4. With John Henry Irons and Lana Lang getting married, Chrissy and Kyle getting ready for the birth of their second child, and Sarah confessing to Jordan that she believes staying abroad is the best option for her, the first time jump alone has a lot of significant revelations. Jordan says that he has the impression that he is in the proper place himself, which suggests that the inner turmoil he experienced in the past has at least been somewhat resolved. The second time skip is the more serious one, as it has Superman, Jordan, Jonathan, Steel, and Starlight flying together as a superhero team. Additionally, it shows Clark interacting with Bruno Mannheim with the hope that the criminal can be forgiven due to the fact that he later helped Lois and Clark. In a similar vein, Clark Kent's narration indicates that the hero started working on a charity in order to utilize the attention and prestige that are associated with the Superman moniker in order to assist other people in ways that go beyond simply saving them from natural disasters and threats that are based on superpowers. The most important aspect of the time skip is that it depicts Jordan and Jonathan as adults throughout the parts of the concluding montage that also show Clark and Lois in their later years. The sons continue to be heroes, and each of them eventually gets married and has children, which provides their parents with the opportunity to become grandparents. This prepares the show for its concluding moments, which bring the story of Clark Kent and Lois Lane, who appear on the show, to a close. As is only fitting, the last moments of Superman Lois are devoted to the final days of both of the characters who bear their respective names. In spite of the fact that Clark's narration reveals that the two were able to spend a great number of joyful years together following the defeat of Lex Luthor and the defeat and sacrifice of Doomsday, he also reveals that Lois' disease unfortunately returned, which ultimately resulted in her passing. After this, Clark lives for a number of years, during which time he buys Crypto the dog, which is a typical golden retriever and does not possess any special abilities, to keep him company after Lois has passed away. On the other hand, it appears that Crypto may have outlived his owner, as Clark claims that he lived for 32 years after the main events of Superman and Lois Season 4, with his human replacement heart ultimately giving out after a long and fulfilling life not too long after Lois. Thankfully, despite the fact that Superman's death is a tragic event, the sequence that follows it serves as a fitting conclusion for the hero. It depicts him having a vision in which he says goodbye to all of the significant people in his life, including Lex Luthor, before meeting Lois in the afterlife. This ensures that the two of them receive the opportunity to conclude their show together. The conclusion of Superman and Lois is a testament to the elements that have contributed to the success of the program and made it stand out over the course of its whole run. Since the beginning, the series has made it a point to concentrate on Clark Kent just as much as it has on Superman. It has done so by revealing all of the ways in which his civilian life is just as significant as his hero life. This includes his family and friends, as well as the ways in which these relationships shape his heroic behaviors. The story has been revolving around the significance of human connection for a considerable amount of time, and its conclusion makes certain to emphasize how important all of these connections have been. Knowing that despite the odds and the several plots that seemed to be custom-made to kill him off earlier in his life, he lived a long, happy life surrounded by his loved ones and doing the work that mattered the most to him. The ending certainly seems more sweet than it is bitter. Despite the fact that seeing Superman die permanently after his long life is a bittersweet affair, it is also a bittersweet affair. Consequently, the conclusion of the Superman and Lois series brings the show to an end in a manner that is both emotional and appropriate, guaranteeing that the series will continue to be an important part of the hero's on-screen history.